Good morning. Today I'm going to be going through the financial side of the Liberseed Project. It's Josh here, and the method or the way in which we're trying to execute this, some people might think it's expensive. I think most of it is fairly mandatory considering having a family, young children, etc. The land that we're on doesn't have potentially all the resources that you need when you're trying to move fairly off-grid. Sometimes you can choose a property that has a river that is pretty much as close to drinking water as you can get. We have a well that probably for a reasonable budget, maybe like €1,000 or something, we could get it cleaned out, lined, and potentially with some filters to drink out of it. But that runs the risk of it becoming empty after heavy usage, where if we have, or when we have animals in the future, the likes of pigs or goats or cows or horses, which is the plan, then in the summer months, when we have dry spells, this pond will not completely dry out, but it will definitely get a lot more shallow. It actually is almost there right now. The well, which the water level is currently about 4 meters below the surface, and I don't know how deep that is, but regardless, I don't think we'd be able to water the amount of crops that we are required to grow to feed the family, or supply the amount of water that we need for the drinking water for the animals. So we're going to need to spend on a water pump, which is roughly about €8,000. That's turnkey solutions, which means basically we pay nothing. We pay for everything. We don't do anything. People turn up on the site. They have already figured out, based on the landscape, research on other boreholes in the local area, the soil type, etc., where potential drainage could be for close by buildings, etc. Anyway, they would do all the work, and we just get a pipe towards the house, an electric wire, and that's pretty much all we need. And then we just need to do the plumbing to put it towards the tap to make that work. So that's €8,000. The septic tank, which is our wastewater solution, we need to use a toilet, and so do our kids. So there's people that move off grid and they decide that they want some other solutions. For example, having a compost toilet, where it's pretty much different forms of a bucket, and then when you do what you do, you then cover that up with some sort of material like sawdust, or you can buy some sort of coconut like powdery thing that's biodegradable. It stops it all from smelling, but you still need to deal with the waste that's in the bucket and that cleaning process, etc. I think that's good. I think that's probably a reasonable solution. And then composting that, which takes about 2 years for human waste before you can then use it on any plants that you're going to eat. However, for the plans of the Liberseed Project, where I would like to make it into a agricultural tourism business, that's not feasible as a toilet if we're going to be hooking up our septic tank to potential clients or customers, etc., for like day usage and tours, or some sort of training or educational tours. Then that's not going to be feasible. So then we need to renovate the property, the house, to be able to live in it. The winters in Lithuania we was here in January, it was minus 28 degrees Celsius in the night, and during the daytime it was about 18 degrees Celsius. So it gets very cold. The house is made of roughly inch thick wooden planks, 3 deep, so That's about 3 inches of wood thickness. And then it's got an external single layer of brick. So the house is probably better than a dual layer brick in terms of insulation, but still that's nothing, and I don't think there's any loft insulation whatsoever. So we're going to have to insulate the roof and then turn the loft into some sort of bedrooms, and that would probably cost, including 3 windows, roughly about 5,000 to 8,000 euros. All of the renovation inside the property, inside the house, sorry, is going to be done by myself. I won't be doing any of the electrics or plumbing. I just don't feel comfortable doing that to a good standard, at least. Maybe I can practice some plumbing, but I doubt it. The roof is actually fairly new, so that's a good part. The flooring inside the ground floor, it's only 1 floor and loft, but the flooring inside of it is actually new wood, which is quite nice, so that's good. But we're probably going to be spending quite a lot of money to do that, and that's without investing into a greenhouse, without investing into farm animals, etc. So we'll still be having the full expense of our food. So the goal is that we won't have any mortgage to pay or rent to pay, so that expense is gone. We won't have any water bills, or so usually people pay for water in and water out of their house, so we won't have any of those bills. And then we're planning to grow a willow forest for wood. So willow trees is probably the best tree to grow for biomass, which means the largest amount of energy that you can get out of the shortest period of time in the shortest or the smallest piece of land. So you can grow willow trees roughly about 75 centimeters apart from each other, which is very densely compact, which would be about 200 square meters of 200 square meters, I think I got it right, 0.2 hectares, that's 2,000 square meters, sorry, of land, which is not a huge amount, to be able to grow enough energy to be able to heat our house throughout all of the year, which is really good. And that is going to be done on a 5-year rotation. So from the point of planting, you buy, it's called willow whips, but it's essentially just cuttings. So imagine this tree here. This is not a willow tree, but you would cut probably a branch about this thick off and then put that in the ground. And then the fantastic thing about willow trees is that will just grow. That will grow into another tree. And then you do what's called copusicing, which means you just cut it at the base and then it will grow back, which is fantastic. So it's more like a plant. That's a similar plant to what you do with bananas. Bananas are not trees, they're plants. The plant grows, produces bananas, and then you cut the whole plant down and then it grows back again. So you'll have, we will need roughly about 300 trees for every year, which is about 1,500 trees. Let's call it 1,800 to plant. So I need to plant 1,800 of these sticks into the ground, which is going to be probably on the back piece of land over there. So that will be the energy, the heating part gone. So you can imagine your own monthly bills. Imagine you eradicate your expenditure of your heating throughout the year. Imagine you eradicate the expenditure of your water in and out. That bill is gone. Imagine you eradicate the mortgage or the rent. That's gone. And then you start growing food. And if you're growing food, high quality food, on a reasonable scale, then maybe you could supply 50, 60-70% of your food throughout the year as well. So then you get rid of that, and the question is what other bills do you have? How much of those can you just get rid of? People have Netflix and Amazon subscriptions, and they maybe buy more expensive clothing, etc. I think you can get rid of half of that, and you know, there's still things that's going to be fairly mandatory for you to purchase, and things like salt and pepper and sugar, etc., that you're not going to be able to produce or get from the land. There's going to be some probably maintenance and building equipment that we'll need to purchase. So there's still a requirement for income at some point, and money, plus you've got taxes and if you have vehicles, etc. But the point is to reduce that as much as you can, so you have less work to do, less income to produce. And if you can produce an income from what you're doing, of surplus food, surplus wood, maybe like the idea that I have with this lawnmower, going and cutting people's grass that other normal lawnmowers cannot handle, then these little side businesses, things to do with what you're already doing, will be sufficient. And so this plan is being executed. It's rather expensive initially, but it's all about the long-term goal of becoming as self-sufficient and reliant on the system as possible, so that we can decide what we want to do with our time. We can decide how we want to make our money. When we're tied down to a single or two jobs, and whether you like that job or not, you're going to need to turn up and put the effort in every day. And that's good. Some people like that. I had a lot of fun and met some fantastically great people along my way. I no doubt at some point in my life I'm going to need to be doing some sort of work for somebody, but in the meantime, at least for the next year, we're going to be trying to execute this, and so far it's going well. Thanks for listening. I hope that was informative. I hope that was kind of interesting on the basis of, you know, what does it cost, what we're trying to do, and what is the result in terms of financially of achieving that. This is we managed to cut all the grass around the beehives with no bees in it. It's quite cozy in here. I don't know if you can hear the birds. It's beautiful. Oh, there we go. There's a pigeon. Bye bye.